Hey, it's Matt. Today we're going to look at this Leopard 2AV, or maybe it's 2A5, I'm not sure. This was inspired by the recent events in the Ukraine and seeing that Germany, among other NATO nations, is donating a variety of tanks to the Ukraine. When I first started looking up Leopard 2 tanks, I found this War Thunder Leopard 2AV being discussed, and I found these cool renderings. So I figured I would try my hand at this model, and it turned out to be pretty difficult. But as always, to show you how I put it together, I'm going to take it apart. All right, so we're going to start by removing the turret. Let's get this more centered. So this body is a combination of Lego and mostly Cobi parts. Cobi has these really nice olive green colors and these nice brown colors. The regular brown color is from Lego, and these are also Cobi colors right here. This other tan that has sort of an orangish tint to it. I also, right off the bat, I want to admit that I have cheated a little bit on this one. I have not affixed certain plates on it, like this plate across the back. It's just resting in there by gravity. Here's what that looks like underneath. The same is true for the front fenders and this front glacis. I think that's what you call it. I'm just going to lift those off too. If I would have spent more time on it, I would have figured out ways to more permanently mount them. To string this camo piece together, I had to do a lot of trickery in the back. I'll take off the back deck. I'll tell you what, we're going to swing around to the back. The back of mine isn't exactly like the real one. I took some liberties here. There are a couple little mini fans in the back of the real one, but I used these bigger fan pieces. I think they came off of some kind of Star Wars vehicle. And there are, believe it or not, there are taillights on the real tank. But I'm going to take this panel off. You can see it's actually at an angle. I really had to string this one together too. Back there you can see that's how I'm connecting it. It's real important to have pieces that have like the hole in the middle, and that way you can mount to that, hook it up to this little piece right there. Let's try with the back again. The trickiest thing with this tank and other tanks I've made of this scale, is that the body of this one is actually 11 studs wide. And so I'm having to use a lot of these centering type pieces to get stuff offset. And you just have to figure out side by side offsetting and vertical offsetting. So for example, these parts are kind of hiding up underneath. You'll see underneath, and the chassis is built on an even platform, but the body is built on an odd platform. So you have to make these adjustments as you go. That's what we got going on there. So I'm uncovering part of the secret to how to build tanks if you don't have tank tread parts. And that is, I'm using these flexible strips that you can get. They come in 2 wide, 3 wide, 4 wide, and then you just cut them to length. This, I can hide the fact that I don't have a complete set of tracks underneath the skirting and in the body. You can see the other one starting to come up there too. Something I want to point out, you can see this isn't quite aligned with the way the wheels are underneath. But if you give yourself enough distance, you can anchor them. I'm seating this piece and then locking it in, for example. But when you look at the actual alignment of the wheels, you can see that angling going on there too. See how that's flexing over? You can hide, you can cheat stuff like that. So again, you can see all these centering type pieces I got going on underneath here. That's what these guys look like. I apologize for my beat up hands. I'm old, what can I say? The jungle knuckles, well, that's Mother Nature. What can I say? I'm the first guy in my family to walk upright. All right, so now the treads have dropped away in the back. Let's move those out. That's what's going on underneath there. This is busier than what I remember when I was building it. You can see the back drive wheels are exposed there. This, if I pull this away, this is what that back vent panel, the angled vent panel on the back of the tank, that's how that was mounted. Okay, let's take a look at how the treads are mounted in the front now that that's exposed. Again, you can see that offsetting. So by the time it gets to the front of the tank, it's outboard, but to lock it in, it's inboard. And these are still, it's still locked in there. I want to talk about camouflaging, and I pointed this out on other tanks I've built. Notice how I'm trying to keep like a diagonal trend by offsetting one or two as it goes along. And I try to wrap the colors. So you can see this tan sort of comes over here. A little gray interrupts it. But you always want to have more than one, contiguous piece of a color. This central turntable, it's centered in the chassis. The chassis is an even number, and the body is odd numbered. Now these are cool pieces made by Cobi, I'm assuming, in that you don't have a stud at the top. Unfortunately, they were dark brown, and that's actually the reason why I brought brown into the body. One of the reasons. Okay, now you can see under here, this is where those treads are being locked down. And this is, they only go this far. Let's take a look at the side skirts. One of the coolest and readily recognizable features of the Leopard 2 are these really cool undulating skirts that they have. I had these nice smooth Cobi ones, so that's what I went with where I could. On the ends, I'm using the longer ones. These are all floating, and they're mounted and held together with these long 1x strips. Speaking of floating, this piece that does like a 90-degree thing is actually floating right on the tread. It's not really hooked up. It's not hooked to anything except for the tread below it, and then the body pieces on top are holding it in. So on each side, I basically have 1, 2, 3, 4 of these. These, by the way, were two attempts at making permanent mounting points for the front plates. I just didn't wind up using either one of these by the time I decided to make this video. If you figure something out, please let me know. Okay, so that's what's holding in the tread. I'll go ahead and pull the other skirts off. I also made the pattern, the color pattern is, see how that's going diagonally? And if you would, how it was across the front, you know, this would have been tan, green. You know, try to keep the stripes going diagonally. There that goes. Okay, I know this looks complicated, probably because of all the colors. And that's where most, other than figuring out, you know, all the spacing type of things, figuring out a good camouflage pattern takes a lot of time. And then you have to rig stuff too. Because you're not using solid pieces, you've got to do all this crazy stuff underneath to stitch them together. You'll see that in the turret coming up. Here's a case where I built one side and came back later and did this side, and that's why they're a little bit different. That's okay. It doesn't have to be perfectly symmetrical underneath, as long as it gets the job done, right? All right. So, let's take a look at the wheels. Now, I'm actually kind of proud of myself because I'm showing suspension, like a Christie suspension. When you look at it from the side, like from that angle, you can't see that these are actually just coming straight down in between the wheels. It's got a nice effect when you look at it from the side. And the way I did that is underneath I have these smaller wheels set inboard of the bogey wheels. Okay, I'm going to dig a little deeper here. I think I had it like that. I'm putting it back on just for a sec. I just wanted to show you how I'm overhanging the treads. By using these centering type pieces here to be able to cantilever over the edge. Okay, I think I'm just going to show how I got this front lower plate. It's actually double articulated. There's a set of joints in there and another set up front. Oops. This is one of my secret weapon parts. I wish I had a bunch more of these. They're very useful when you have to center things and stitch and float things. All right, so that's as far as I'm going to take that down. Now we're going to take a look at the turret, which is a whole other kettle of fish, but this tank is a cat, so I guess that doesn't make it. Okay, so here's the turret, which is something else I'm actually pretty proud of. A lot of time went into figuring this out. They always look so easy when they're done, but they literally take hours and hours of trial, concentration, error, more trial, and then just finding a compromise to what looks best compared to your model. I did look at blueprints for this model to try to get the scale as close as I could and to have things look reasonably proportioned. Okay, some features of the turret. It's got these twin old school style machine guns, which I like because they seem to be a modern carryover of the MG-42s, kind of like American tanks And American forces still use the old 50 caliber MOC deuces, which is pretty freaking cool that they've been around that long. Anyway, part of the turret of the Leopard 2AV is that it's actually pretty blocky. More modern ones are more kind of arrowhead or spear shaped, and I'm glad I picked this one because trying to get those shapes would be really tricky. Anyway, it's got this this open area back here on the real one. These are smoke launchers, and to do that I use little Lego man binocular pieces. The hatches are, obviously they're made using wheel pieces. They had just the right side profile for what I was looking for. And you might have noticed this is wobbling around. That's because, again, I cheated and I didn't lock this thing down. But it was just as well because I constantly had to make adjustments inside. So this actually just lifts up and out of the way. I want to show you something funny. To get this camouflage pattern, I kept floating and stitching things together on the back, and I wound up with this crazy quilt work. But when I look back at it, I could have just used a bunch more solid pieces back here. I could use a 6x4 and to not have this craziness, but oh well, that's part of the fun. You notice there's a notch right here, and that's actually on the real tank. And I think I'm not sure what it is. I think it's probably some kind of radar sighting unit, but it's notched into the side of the gun, and into the front of the mantlet. So I recreated that. All right, let's take a look in there again. There's the secret. I have these outriggers that float these angled pieces. And this is how the gun goes up and down. So these can just come off, and everything's just sort of floating out front. There's a look into the interior of the turret. I'll show you underneath so you can see what's going on. I was able to sort of stair-step my way up to get the profile I needed from the side. I had to figure out a lot going on with going, okay, this is an odd across here, this is even. These pieces here add up to 1.5, and they are crucial anytime you're going to be doing offsets. The trick to get this flush here is one of these type of pieces. There's another look inside. And that's all I'm going to break this one down. Let's talk about the gun. This gun barrel, I directly recycled the middle chunk of it off of the Russian T-90 tank. And to get this sort of bulging part, that's just packaging tape that I wrapped a bunch of times and then I cut it off with an X-Acto. And again, if there's any kids out there watching, either have your parent cut with the X-Acto or have them supervise you, because they are really, really sharp. There is a rod inside there. Well, I hope you've enjoyed watching this and you learned a trick or two. I really appreciate you watching this to the very end. Please leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. You know, something like only 2% of the people who view subscribe, and it doesn't cost anything. So mash that subscribe button and set the notifications so you won't miss the next exciting episode. Anyway, thanks so much for liking and subscribing and sharing. Talk to you later. Bye.